Hello, our friends. Hey, everybody, it's Jason Blaha here, and it's time for another max effort lower day. But a quick reminder for those of you who watch these videos every day, please remember to click like down below. It would be greatly appreciated, and click like on my other video. Sorry, I'm just now getting around to doing this. I've been jamming out for music and playing around on social media and talking to clients. I should have got this up a while back. Just now getting to voicing over because this workout didn't take that long. My max effort lower days are really not that long. So I decided to try this low box with a cambered bar. Now some people are going to be like, don't you squat 605 with that bar? That's a back squat. And yes, I've hit 535 off of a 13-inch box. This is the 11-inch box. That was hard. I'm not saying it was a true max. Now my 535 off the 13 was a true max. My 605 back squat, that was a true max. That was a good training max. I'm going to build up off of all these different bars off this box height. I'm going to keep working off this box for a long time, particularly while I'm cutting. And I want to try to PR each time I try the same bar again off this height. And yeah, they're all in the mid 400s so far. You know, I haven't hit anything over 455 with any bar off that box yet, because it's a deep box for me. It's super deep, right? It lights my hips up. And you guys know the reasons we're doing deep boxes. We've discussed it before. Now, I've decided that, again, having to do with fatigue, I'm not going to do any heavy box squats outside of maxes. I'm going to take it all to my speed work. I feel like looking at it, I'll get more out of doing more volume on speed work in general. More speed boxes, I'll take the volume up and keep my speed pulls where they are. And I'm going to take exercises to build up all the muscles in my squat and deadlifts, right, on these days. And by the way, I skipped the box sumo deadlifts because my hips were pretty well shot today. Like that took a lot out of my hips. My hips are getting really fatigued. I'm going to have to rotate the sumo stuff out pretty soon, I think, or start rotating it back and forth. And that's okay. It'll be fine. And I may do sumo and conventional every other week rather than 3-week waves. But decided, since I had the cambered bar on there, let me go ahead and use this bar. I do need to keep doing good mornings with both different bars to keep some variation in. I went 5 pounds lower than the best 10 rep max I've ever done. So we went with 385 and got 3 sets of 10. They were still good work sets. We're in our effective rep zone. They were not at the bleeding edge, right? Because I've done this 5 pounds heavier, but it's still very good stimulus. Very good stimulus. So because my max on this bar is 555. Right, I've done 555 for a max on this bar. Now people will notice the first rep or two, I usually don't get as deep, and then I get deeper on the higher rep work. It's for me to kind of get in my groove with these, right? I do need to feel like I need to get in my groove sometimes, especially if I'm not doing a ramp up like I do on the max. On the maxes, I try to sink it deep once we start getting, you know, over 400 pounds. But again, great movement overall for my back, my glutes, hamstrings, everything else. And we're going to see a lot more glute work, a lot more quad work coming in. I'm going to start doing step-ups on all my max effort days. I think I don't need them. I'm not going to need them on dynamic days because I think I'm going to incorporate box jumps because I'm going to be doing higher volumes of speed work in general. I feel like the box jumps on top of that will handle all of my quads. These I'm going to have to build back up. Now, one of the perks of this, look at the deep angle I get off this because I'm on a high box. We're starting well below parallel. Even though people are like, well, you're stepping up a little bit, but even then, look at the point where I'm at as my toes even lift off the ground. We're below parallel, right? This puts that deep stretch on the quad, deep stretch on the glute. This is basically a quad glute, and to some extent, an adductor exercise, which we need. I need to bring those adductors up again to get the sumo pulls up, get stronger at the wide stance on the box squats. This lets me get everything I would get out of a belt squat. You know, a lot of times people are like, well, you're not going to do the belt squats. No, I'm not going to do them for a while. Because I'm so strong on them that I feel like there's an injury risk just getting up and down in the setup and the weight swinging. If something goes wrong, I could break a foot. I could break my ankle. To me, it's just not worth it anymore. It's fine when I'm playing with, you know, 200 pounds. I'm up to where I can rep out over 300 pounds for higher reps. It's just not worth it for me with the setup. Now, if I had a belt squat machine, it would be fine. But it's at that point. This is a safer exercise for me to get a very similar effect. Plus, it's isolateral. We're ensuring fairly even loading. Again, although there's no guarantee of that even with isolateral work. I think that's a bit of a myth because you might cheat a little more on one side, right? It's like the whole dumbbell debate. Although doing one movement at a time, it is a little harder to cheat. You do things isolateral. But there is the benefit of that. We are ensuring a little more even development, and I notice that left side is slightly weaker. But again, very, very little axial loading. Like, people will have these ideas and they'll talk about stimulus to fatigue, and it's like, just like the whole thing I discussed the cheat curls, people are literally talking about stimulus to fatigue on a cheat curl. I'm going to try not to cuss here, but if you're that effing stupid that you're actually worried about the fatigue of a cheat curl, then you shouldn't do a step up either. Because look at all that axial loading. Look at all that fatigue. No, it's nothing. You're not doing high rep cheat curls with 300 pounds, guys. Well, most of you aren't. I can't. Same thing with a step up like this. Yes, there's a small amount of axial loading, but it's minuscule. It's minuscule. It's very small. Therefore, it makes it extremely appropriate for this. So I can go ahead and get that deep stretch position with very, very minimal impact on my recovery. It's great. It's better than squats for building my quads. And then I'll have the speed boxes, which again, good stimulus fatigue. And the speed pulls on my speed day, and then the box jumps. Now this is on the other end because it's so heavy, but again, we get over to, it's not that fatiguing, right? Glute bridges don't beat you up. We move a lot of weight through a short range of motion. Now you'll get people who will say, why would you do this instead of a hip thrust? Number one, it's easier to set up and it doesn't hurt you as bad, right? Hip thrusts tear your skin and hips up when you're strong as I am. This slightly shorter range of motion lends itself to a safer exercise. You are far less likely to injure your back. And that's the big thing a lot of coaches have noticed with the hip thrusts. They can hurt your back. We are far less likely to with this because we limit that point of the range of motion. The glutes get a tremendous workout. We practice moving a very, very heavy weight through that lockout position. It's also a good quad exercise. And no one wants to talk about that with these movements. Oh, they don't. Yes, they do. Look at it. You're telling me that doesn't work the lower quad? It's in a stretch position and it has to move. Is it it's the same as a full range of motion? No. But if you're wanting your quad, again, we talk about joint angle specificity. Quads will get trained some on this. Good secondary quad movement. But again, hammering those glutes. And we're forcing the glutes again to move very heavy weights through the lockout. I'll go up real quick on this because these 12 rep sets were not that hard. I haven't done these in a while. But I wanted to stick around 10, so I started with a lighter weight. I'll build up. I'll probably be doing sets of 10 with 550 before long. And I'm showing a little more of these than normal because some people are like, well, how do you get set up on there? Well, again, you have to be aware of where you're at. Like if you've got a big space of open floor, it's not that hard to get set up. For me, I have to be able to get under it and roll it back without it hitting the rack. So if I just lay down there just anywhere, I'm just gonna be slamming the bar against the rack. And then my hands will be getting pinched by the rack. And this is something I'm gonna point out too. Notice I'm gripping all the way at the edges. One of my lifters ended up straining his elbows doing this lift, and I didn't realize, because he had never sent me footage. Because not all my lifters send me footage like Mikey does. Some of them send me like 1 video a week, 2 videos a week, just their maxes. So this is my longer term advanced guys. You know, strain some elbows, but he was gripping it up in the middle. No, you grip it out wide. I'm pretty much almost at the collars. But again, this will improve your deadlift lockouts. That's another big deal with it. Like if you struggle with the lockout of a deadlift, getting really strong at these, get up to where you can rep 550. You won't have deadlift lockout problems anymore unless it's your back. It won't be a glute problem. Then we did glute ham raises. Like I said, I skipped the sumo box deadlifts today because my hips were really, really fatigued. I noticed them even on these again. Now, the reason I use the glute ham raise, some people will say, well, you get a lot of hamstring work. That's true. There's one head of my hamstring that does not get worked directly with the other work I'm doing, right? The other 2 heads do. This is just a good injury prevention tool. We're hitting the hamstrings from a different angle. Hitting the hamstrings from a slightly different angle, right? Because everything else is a stretch position. This puts us more into that contracted position, and we get actual flexion of the knee. It's very little flexion of the knee with the other hamstring movements I'm doing. And that impacts one of the heads. just ensures more complete hamstring development. That's it. It's really basically a single joint exercise. I'm trying to do it always with my back straight. Some people think that well, don't you always do them with an extension? No, tons of people don't do them with an extension. I'm not worried about back extension on this. I'm actually trying to be completely straight, but no matter what I do, I can't ever achieve the position. So just for those curious, I've always been over no matter, even when I go to the really easy settings and no weight. So I just accept it and just work with progressive overload on it. But it lights my hamstrings up. If I'm not very careful with what I do right after each set, like if I just sit down and stick my legs under me, they will cramp and my workout is done for the day. I actually, when I'm doing these, it hits my hamstrings so hard that I have to sit down with my legs out straight in front of me. Because if I don't, they'll cramp up and I won't be able to do another set and I won't be able to do my reverse hypers. But yeah, the reverse hypers are up next. And again, for those who understand, yes, it's a hamstring exercise to some extent, but it really hits the glutes and the erectors extremely hard. Arguably the best overall exercise for your spinal erectors, not just from a development side, but from a recovery side, because the traction it creates at the bottom pulls on your spine and stretches it. Now, because I do a lot of axial loading, I still do a fair amount. Again, puts that stretch on it. It facilitates recovery and restoration. Extremely good therapeutic device for anyone who's ever had a back injury. And this is kind of like the keystone, the final little last touch in all my lower body training. And I think it's critical. I think it's indispensable. I really wish everyone had access to one of these. Training in general would be so much better, and people's back health and longevity and lifting would be so much better if they have access to one of these, particularly older lifters, middle-aged lifters. This thing is a game changer. If you don't have one, it is worth finding a way to buy one and make space for it. It really is. It really is, especially if you're over 40. It's worth it. But again, my training is very, very glute heavy today too, right? Yes, there's a lot of hamstring, a lot of back, right? We do all these things, but again, a lot of glute, because even those step ups hit the glutes and the quads. I am making sure my glutes are getting hit from all angles too. All right, glutes are a very, very big muscle. We made sure that we're hitting the quads from a couple different angles technically today, and they're going to be hit from completely different angles on speed day. But my glutes, look at all the glute exercises, not even counting the box squat, the step ups. That deep position is actually a very good glute exercise. All right, the glute bridges. Instead of that stretch we do with that, we take them up into a heavy contracted position. Again, really helps with the deadlift lockout. We look at the joint angle. The reverse hypers, glutes get hit hard. In fact, I've gotten glute DOMs from this. The first time I ever got glute DOMs was from this device, the heavy good mornings. So my glutes got hit from a lot of angles today. It's actually a lot of volumes. Technically 12 solid work sets for glutes, more than we might do for other muscles. But overall, happy with today's workout. I'll PR next time I use that bar on that box. I kept it to a heavy, pretty heavy training max, but not a true max. Happy with today's workout. We'll increase volume on speed work next time, and I'll discuss it further, and I'll probably start doing some jumps in there too. But again, hypertrophy is going to be the name of the game, hitting all these angles in a way that I can recover on max effort days, because eventually I'll go back to doing 2 on knee lowers. So a squat and a deadlift, or a squat and a good morning. So again, everything after that's hypertrophy. So I hope it has been informative, and I will talk to you guys next time.